Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new SenseAbility newsletter podcast interview. My guest today is Scott Clark. This is a particular pleasure for me because Scott is the trainer that I studied with in London from 2016 to 2020. I have a huge deal of respect for Scott, and I'm very kind of fortunate to get to interview him so that you guys can meet him and learn a bit about his thoughts on trainings as well. So welcome, Scott.
Thank you very much, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here.
So maybe if we just start with getting to know you a little bit, maybe you could give us some
Mhm.
background as to, your journey with the Feldenkrais method and up until this point being a trainer in the method.
Right. Well, uh, I grew up in New Mexico, got interested in first in science and mathematics, and made a switch kind of late in life from mathematics to dance. But in dance, I was learning really, really slowly. I felt like the slowest learner in the room, so I looked for ways to learn faster. And that led me to Feldenkrais, which changed my life. And eventually, I finished my career as a dancer and a dance teacher and was able to simply step sideways into full-time work as a teacher of the Feldenkrais method. To my surprise, I got involved in trainings first as an assistant and then later as an organizer of trainings and now as a trainer and an educational director.
Mm,
So it's been Feldenkrais has been my life now for the better part of 40 years.
mm,
And a part of my life for a few years before that as well.
mm. Your training, I think I read on your website, was in London in 1987. Is that right?
We started in 87, finished in 1990.
Okay.
One of the earlier trainings, and the trainers were still, I think, in the early days of figuring out how to make new teachers, how to run a training.
Mm.
So it was uh, it was an interesting time.
I mean, just maybe then if we pick up on that point, how would you say the training in the method has evolved over the years? And personally for you, how has your approach to teaching changed through your experience as a teacher and a trainer, being an educational director even?
Hmm. The I think trainings today are unrecognizably different from the training that on which I trained. Everything has changed so much because all the trainers have got so much more experience now in the training process and questioning ways that ATM can be related to the learning of FI. Uh, for such a long time, we had this paradigm of teaching through ATM where you never visually imitated somebody else, but you found the truth of the movement in yourself and you experimented to find how things could be better. Uh, and the name of the game was learning, just wide open field of learning. And yet, FI was always at first taught as now do this, watch me, and do what I'm doing. Such a bizarre contrast.
Mm,
And it's taken everybody rather a long time to escape that, not least because I've been on several advanced trainings where the person teaching tried to get us to not do that learning by imitation. And we rebelled. No, just show us what you want us to do, because that was the way we wanted to learn.
mm,
So to to drag everybody, teachers and students alike, kicking and screaming away from that just slavish imitation and
mm.
into something where, well, what am I paying attention to? How can I pay attention differently and therefore act differently in the world, or in this case, with the person that I'm working with?
Mm,
So I think that's been a huge change for everybody in the Feldenkrais field,
yeah.
especially trainers. And I can see many, many examples of people who've made extraordinary changes in the way that they teach. And that's been a joy to watch, to be around,
Mm,
a joy to learn from as well. And so that's one of the things that behooves us all to continue to investigate how can we improve this process of learning to be a Feldenkrais teacher.
mm,
Uh, Feldenkrais himself had a huge respect for George Gurdjieff, and Gurdjieff says if you want to climb the ladder of learning, then one of the things you have to do is as you move up a step, you've got to help somebody up to the step that you've just vacated. And that is a pretty good model of how we can often learn best, not just in Feldenkrais, but in many aspects of life.
mm,
So for to work as a trainer, to help other people come up to the level that you are currently occupying, that's the best way to learn.
mm.
And it's something that's personally extraordinarily rewarding.
Yeah, I like the analogy there, and I think kind of what you were saying about not providing demonstration means that that process is a, a quite deep process to bring someone up to the
Hmm.
level that you are at in terms of FI knowledge, for example. FI
Hmm.
being functional integration, the one-to-one hands-on work of the Feldenkrais method, that you have 40 years of experience doing that particular kind of work. So passing that on to someone in terms of them being able to trust their own experience of it is an interesting teaching experience, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's one of the things that is extraordinary about the Feldenkrais method is that it is so self-directed and it's the it's one of the well, I'm prejudiced, but I think it's one of the best modalities for allowing people to discover their own individuality and their own individual style of learning and of acting in the world.
Mm,
Uh, so that it's the exact opposite of this one size fits all, buy it off the rack and it's ready to wear.
yeah. Yeah, I think I remember seeing I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like a robot lifting someone who had a stroke. Or I was like doing some kind of physio or something. And I was like, that's the stark difference between some areas of conventional medicine and what we're doing in the Feldenkrais method. We're really
Yeah.
looking for the individual experience, really trying to communicate ourself with another
Hmm.
unique being. You know, and explore all of the elements of both parties within a functional integration lesson.
Hmm.
So if we leave that aside for a second, and this is kind of more of a general question, but who would you say that a Feldenkrais a professional training is for? I think within the UK there has been a trend of being, I don't know, not necessarily more catered to, but the Feldenkrais method being more known within the arts community, so music, dance, acting. The
Yeah.
Feldenkrais method, I think, is much more known within that community, but it's obviously open to more people. So, you know, who are the people
Yeah,
that
sure.
you see attracted to the method, and what um what would you say to people that are interested and wanting to do the training? Maybe two questions there.
Yeah, that two big questions as well.
Mm,
Uh, in some places where I find myself working, where I'm teaching on trainings, A lot of the people who've enrolled on the training are people who are already involved in teaching movement, as in physiotherapy, or even medical practitioners, doctors, and surgeons, um, or Pilates or yoga, something like that, where people are already engaged in a modality of dealing with the moving person, the acting person, um, but through that lens of helping people through difficulty, helping people improve or heal or something like that, which is quite different from what we find in the arts fields, where more often the practitioners are they're not involved with injuries or recovery from disease or accident. It's how do I make art? How do I let the creativity within me be expressive, or how do I help somebody else's creativity come out?
Mm,
And that's such an exciting approach when to work with musicians and dancers and actors and so on. Uh, there's so much possibility of uh, something that is new, something that is creative. And I especially like the mixture of those populations. And that's something that UK trainings have been mm, particularly, I think it's particularly true about UK trainings that I've been exposed to,
mm,
that there's quite a mixture of arts practitioners with practitioners from other rehabilitative or medical fields or something like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, I mean,
It's
to
a
go,
challenge. Sorry.
yeah,
It's a challenge for the two populations because one population sometimes is looking at the other going, what on earth are you doing? And oh, I feel bad because I don't have the kind of specialized knowledge that you have. And
mm,
that can happen from either side of this little fence. But it's potentially very enriching.
yeah. And I guess some of that is the experience that someone has when they come into a training from either side of that spectrum, maybe more of the personal movement practice, self-awareness based skill. So they may be a dancer with, high levels of self-awareness that they've developed, or they may be a physio who understands some of the health challenges that human beings deal with and very used to touching people and working with people with those issues, and because of the because of the two modalities within the Feldenkrais method, it, sometimes the individuals will be more experienced and more confident with one rather than the other. How do you
Yeah.
balance that on a training?
By giving people a chance to explore both sides, challenging them on both sides.
Mm,
Yeah. The the internal personal experience, which is epitomized by either doing awareness through movement classes or by receiving FI, uh, enhances so much the possibility of the other side of the coin, teaching awareness through movement classes or doing the hands-on work with someone else. Um, I, for me, it's still difficult to imagine doing one without the other. Teaching without studenting.
mm.
Maybe I should say teaching without learning. It's a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of struck in your initial statement that you said you were a slow learner, and you came to Feldenkrais because you wanted to learn faster. But I think most people would see the Feldenkrais method as a slow, a slow process. Um, so yeah, it's an
In
interesting thought.
its way,
Yeah,
in its way,
yeah,
yeah. But because it's so open, because you can learn about whatever you want to learn about through the Feldenkrais method. Uh, it's it's so widely applicable. You can learn to dance better. You can learn to question what your dance teachers are telling you
Mm,
because they're simply human beings teaching from their particular experience and basis of knowledge.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, so then kind of a follow-up question to that would be, what are some of the areas or kind of knowledge areas that are covered within a training? So obviously one of them, as you say, is developing your own, I don't know, sense of authority, let's say, you know, so that when you
yeah,
come into contact with other people, that you have your own basis with which to receive information from. But, I mean, my memory of the training within the training, we talked about the developmental process, some neurological aspects. Like, could you kind of give a flavor about some of the main themes that are covered within a training?
yeah, you've said it very well. There are there are developmental themes that look again at the processes by which each of us learned how to crawl, to stand, to walk, to sit. Uh, Neurological things. Um, there are all sorts of ideas about how to move better, how to move well, how to see movement in the first place, how to feel movement. But it's that how to feel movement especially um, that's so important because most of us are start out as real beginners in feeling movement. Even people who've studied movement from a very technical basis
Mm,
uh, can be can find that quite challenging. As an example, when I first started getting interested in dance, uh, a friend of mine who had been a dancer but had changed to something more psychologically oriented, he looked at me and he said, "Just one word of warning. You're getting into this field of dance because you are interested in sensing yourself and learning about your how you are embodied." He said, but dance is crap at that because after a while you're taught just to overrule the sensation, to go against what you feel. And you end up at war with yourself just as quickly through dance as through any other profession.
mm,
And that was a warning that turned out to be very true. And when I came to the Feldenkrais training, I had all sorts of knowledge and experience about moving through having worked as a dancer and a dance teacher. But I also had the most incredible blind spots, areas where I had no idea what I was doing because it was, well, for instance, in a Feldenkrais lesson, we're often asked to try things two different ways and then to feel the difference.
mm,
And as a dancer, I felt that it was an affront to my professional skill to feel the difference because I was supposed to be able to do both movements equally easily as a professional. So therefore, I couldn't allow one to be more comfortable or one to be simpler, easier, something like that. I
mm,
can do that. I can do that. And that I can do that is in some ways the enemy of sensitivity,
mm.
precision even.
I mean, it's interesting, almost in the way that you're presenting it, there is, it's like your emphasizing rather than the learning themes, one of those themes being the unlearning process. So we have
Yeah,
things that we've learned over over our lifetime, and to do with the skills or the ways that we've learned or the different things that we've been involved in. And often those have a mentality or a mindset that, we carry with us. Um, so part of the process of the Feldenkrais method and training to some extent is unlearning, um, you know.
very much.
Mhm.
Because we can be very obstinate about carrying those things with us
Yeah.
and only discover them after years of carrying them with us.
Mhm. So then if I go to the second part of my question, what advice would you give to someone who is thinking about considering doing a training? Obviously, there is a few different aspects to it. One is that it's a 4-year training.
Hmm.
One is that it has a cost associated with it. Another is that, maybe there are different trainings available to you. So
Hmm.
maybe you could offer some advice to people that are considering doing a training.
Yeah. The cost is a cost not only in money terms, but also in time and attention.
Mm,
And it's not inconsiderable. The the style of learning can be quite different from one training to another, even within the general atmosphere of the Feldenkrais method.
mm,
So, if at all possible, it's great to have the opportunity to visit um, a training that has some of the same staff or some of the same uh, educational direction as the one in which you might be interested.
mm,
It's so irreplaceable, simply experiencing what the flavor, the atmosphere of that training can be like,
mm,
whether it suits you or not. That's the decision. Um, in terms of choosing a particular training program, aside from questions about location and the calendar and how that fits in with your calendar and so on. But but beyond that, there is this there is this chance to uh, explore in really a quite profound, immersive way one's own experience of moving and doing, of acting in the world uh, in a way that allows you to clean up so much of the accumulation of insults that we call experience of life. When I first started the training, I'd been working as a dancer for some years, but I had reached the point where to go into the rehearsal room and move was it hurt. So I would avoid it like the plague. I'd try and limit my rehearsal to mental practice, mental rehearsal,
mm,
in order to avoid the pain of actually moving, actually rehearsing. And the first the first few weeks of the Feldenkrais training, it was like somebody had dipped me in the fountain of youth. Uh, I I lost pains and discomforts that never came back,
mm,
and that was astonishing. I kind of expected that, but I had no idea that it was going to be as dramatic as it was.
mm,
So that it made moving was pleasurable again. And I could find pleasure in movement that was quite different from any kind that I'd found before. So it was, that deep enjoyment, deep uh, experience of pleasure. Nobody quite prepared me for that. I didn't
mm.
realize I was going to get that from the training. I
Right.
thought it was going to, make some make some techniques easier to learn, make my legs kick a little bit higher and stuff like that.
Mm. I think often people, especially when it comes to training, I don't know whether it's because of the way that our education system works, but we think of a course that has a qualification at the end of it, kind of like an academic process. And I think that what you're talking about there is that there's a deeply personal element to a Feldenkrais professional training that is in some way more important than the end result qualification as a Feldenkrais practitioner. That you're going through a process of making movement pleasurable to yourself again, you know?
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. Yeah.
I remember when I was looking back in 2015, 2016, I was looking at the trainings that were available within the UK and wider than that. A big part of my decision-making process was the people that I was going to be studying with. And I remember watching a video of you on YouTube where you did a short talk with 10, 10 or so Alexander technique practitioners at Friends Meeting House.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I knew at the time there was a little bit of debate about um, primacy of ideas in terms of Alexander and Feldenkrais and etc. But the way that you presented it and you spoke to them was so open and inviting and collaborative. I was like, okay, I like I like how this guy
Yeah.
talks to people, and that for me was an attractive aspect of deciding to come on your training. So I think that, as you
Yeah.
say, connecting with the people, seeing how they teach, because it is a personal journey. I think that's a
Hmm.
very important point to bring up.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you've touched on there, the recognition and appreciation of what other modalities have to offer
Mm,
is so important because, yeah, there I chose the Feldenkrais method to train in because it suits me. It offers things that I don't as easily find in other modalities, but
mm,
that in no way detracts from any other modality.
mm,
And I've learned so much from some of my colleagues in the Alexander world and beyond.
mm. Yeah, great. Which I think makes if people understand that the Feldenkrais method isn't saying, you know, we are the best in isolation, that there's, it's a there's
We
a
don't have a monopoly on truth.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
So if we then move on a little bit, and obviously you're involved in the as an educational director, the training in London currently that's going on. Um,
Hmm.
you've done that. I think that is this your third training in London that you've been part of?
Fourth,
Your fourth, okay.
fourth training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So you were on the second, and we
maybe
finished another one
recently.
from after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now we're about to finish the fourth year. This weekend will be the last sessions of the fourth year.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, the first year.
The first year.
First
Okay.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I understand that you have a new training starting with a practitioner that's based in Bath called Sheila O'Neill. Do you want to
Yeah.
maybe say a little bit about that?
Sheila is an extraordinary teacher. She and I trained on that same first UK training.
Mm,
And uh, unlike me, Sheila finished the training and immediately set out her shingle as a Feldenkrais teacher and made it work for her.
mm,
I at least continued for another several years my work as a dancer and a dance teacher and teaching Feldenkrais under the guise of dance classes more often than not.
yeah.
But Sheila was a much braver pioneer, and she established her practice in first in Bristol, then in Cornwall, and now in Bath,
Mm,
and has always had this dream of starting a training in that part of the UK,
mhm,
and is now aiming to realize it. So she's organizing this training that's currently scheduled to begin in May,
mhm,
and and I've agreed to act as educational director. Uh, but Sheila and I have worked closely in all of the London trainings that I've organized,
mm,
the four London trainings after that first one on which we trained so many years ago.
mm,
We've worked very closely, and I have a deep respect for her. Her approach is quite different from mine, and sometimes I think, what on earth is she doing? And how is she managing to succeed at that? It's extraordinary.
mm,
So, um, and I think that's one of the things that I like best about the method is that people can approach it in such different ways and succeed in such different ways.
mm,
So, um, so I'm excited to work with Sheila in this new way. on this project
Mm,
that would be very much her baby, but also mine will cooperate
mm,
on it.
great.
Um,
Um, is there anything else that you would like to cover in terms of things that you want people to know about trainings in general, about the process of professional training? Anything else? Any last thoughts?
my friend Ryan Jensen, who's started life as a physiotherapist and is now a Feldenkrais practitioner,
Mm,
uh, Ryan says what's the most important thing is that people should realize it's the best gift you can give yourself enrolling on Feldenkrais training. And I can't disagree with him. So if you've tried it out, if the method suits you, if that way of inquiring, that way of being with yourself and uh, and learning, if that if that if the flavor of that sort of learning suits you, then it can be such a phenomenal thing to do.
mm, yeah, I 100% agree.
Somehow I thought you would.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much, Scott, for coming on and talking to us.
A pleasure. Thank you.
All of your information will be linked. So I'll link to your website if people want to contact you. You teach ATM lessons. Do you teach it in person or are they all online at the moment? What's your
At the
schedule like?
moment, I'm not teaching ATM lessons. I'm teaching on trainings this last year has sort of
Okay,
monopolized my time.
right.
But I'm I'm going to start some public workshops again in the autumn.
Okay.
So
And you offer one-to-one lessons in London or is
yeah,
that? Yeah, okay.
in London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously if people want to contact Scott about a training, even visiting a training, as Scott said, some of the best ways for
Yeah.
you to really get to know a training is to visit it and get an experience, first-hand experience.
Yeah.
If you contact Scott, I'm sure he can organize that. And we will also
Thanks.
link
Thanks for
to
that.
the professional training that's starting in Bath next year.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Scott. Been a pleasure.
Take care. Take care.